through that front door.
Well, the front
It's
door
unlocked.
should be open. The side door is not. You guys are also not. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the outreach committee meeting for the Community Police Commission for the City of Cleveland. We will start with. Should I start with this, or are we going to do the?
Let's start with selecting a chair.
Okay. So we will start with the selection of the chair pro tem.
I'd like to nominate Amaya Kincaid for the pro tem for the meeting today.
For a
Do
second,
we have a second?
I second that.
Alrighty. So we can vote. I mean, we can unanimously vote, right?
wait, is there any discussion or anything? Okay, we can do it again.
Alrighty. So all in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Well, I guess that makes me the nominee for chair pro tem for today's meeting. Thank you guys so much.
Yay!
All right. So we will do the roll call. Sheila Mason. Antea Miller.
Present.
Emo Umoston.
Present.
And I am present. We also presently have both of our chair people here. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't have to include you guys in our roll call, right? Alrighty. Next, we are going to read our policy around disruption. Yes? Okay. This meeting of the Cleveland Community Police Commission is a lawful meeting under section 605.04 of the codified ordinances. No person with purpose to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting shall do any act which substantially obstructs or interferes with the due conduct of such meeting, procession, or gathering. Members of the public and the commission are invited to speak only under the rules set by this commission. Speaking out of turn in violation of the rules of this commission interferes with the due conduct of this lawful meeting and may constitute a violation of section 605.04. The penalty of violating section 605.04 is a misdemeanor of the 4th degree. Our meeting decorum is listed on the back of our agenda for the day. And so at this time, I will move to adopt today's agenda. We can also vote on that unanimously. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. We won't be approving our minutes from our last meeting at this time. They're still under review. So we are going to move that to our next outreach committee meeting. And hopefully we will have minutes for both this meeting and our previous meeting at that time. Alrighty, so we are on to public comments. So we welcome public commenters. Do you have the list? Alrighty, Lou, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad that our outreach committee is having a real meeting, but I would suggest, even we have a packed agendas at times, but it would be nice to have a public comment sections towards the end, especially when we have time, because lots of times whatever you discuss during the meeting with your agenda items are very important for people to actually learn it doesn't matter, it's the background information or the process, or public are very interested in having a meaningful police reform. So your outreach, in order to be meaningful as well, it would be nice that you also allow people to have a comments after you have all the discussions with your agenda items. And that actually will help you to also taking certain input immediately. Maybe because some of the item maybe is ongoing. It's not like you have this meeting and you will never touch that particular subject anymore. So having public comments will actually help you to have a meaningful work continuously done. And I wish that would happen. Otherwise, a commission would not really be functional without public support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have another one?
So it appears we don't have any
Is the
other
Mr. C?
public comment at this moment. And so have we heard anything back from our guests?
We have not at this point, so I say we skip over that.
Okay.
Watch this door.
Okay.
Let's see.
No, okay.
Okay. So do I need to present this as a motion to adjust the order of the agenda? Or are we just gonna move it? We can move it around.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we wanna move to old business and talk about the annual survey?
Yes.
I mean, do you want to select the outreach chair? That's
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can do that now. Alrighty, so, we need to select our outreach chair. I have admittedly thrown my name in the hat, so, thank you all for being patient with me while I kind of, learn through these, meeting rules or how to conduct these meetings, as there's a learning curve for me. So yeah, I'll just put it out there that I threw my name in the hat to be the chair of outreach. Is there any discussion on that?
No. No
I would
discussion.
like to nominate you.
For the outreach chair.
I second it.
Awesome. So, is this another situation where we can vote unanimously?
I would do.
Roll call? Okay. So in the matter of appointing Maya Kincaid as the chair for the outreach committee, Sheila Mason,
Yes.
Antea Miller,
Yes.
Emo Umosen,
Yes.
and I, Maya Kincaid, yes. Awesome.
Hey, congratulations, Ken.
Thank you. Alrighty. So in that case, we can either talk about our new business, which I think will be a little bit lengthier of a discussion, or do we want to update on our old business, which is the annual survey?
We can do that. We can go order from this point.
Okay.
Let's talk about the annual survey.
Awesome.
So, I don't have much to say. Antea Miller and I, formed a work group to work on the survey. It was my job to reach out to other parties involved, which is the PAT team and the monitor, to see if we could collaborate with anyone on that survey process.
And
And
I'm sorry, what was it? The PAT team?
police accountability team. So through talking to the police accountability team, they thought that it was a good idea to partner with someone to kind of put that out, so we won't be giving the same type of survey to residents and asking them about their interactions with police twice. So I've reached out to the monitor. The update I got, and this will be quick, I got an update that said the monitor expressed support for the potential partnership between the CPC and their office to conduct the upcoming community survey. They feel like they stated that they would want to possibly meet with us in the future to discuss the details and logistics of a collaboration. So this will be a topic of discussion going forward at our next outreach meeting to decide if we come up with a date, and what came from that discussion, if any. So, we should have something at that time. So we're still in the process of trying to meet with the monitors to see if this can happen.
And so is that meeting something that we should all be prepared for, or you and?
Yeah,
Commissioner
initially it'll
Miller
probably
are
be
just gonna-
Commissioner Miller and I, and then from there, we'll fill everybody in, and then, if we, have any questions, we can discuss it, but we'll present it in the meeting.
Okay, and in regard to the survey, I just had a couple of questions for clarity, because I know we had intended to find some time to talk as well. Is this a situation where we need to completely redevelop this survey? Are we like looking back at the questions again and determining, their effectiveness? Is that what we're doing? Or are we pushing out the survey that existed previously to a broader audience?
It depends. It will take this current iteration of the outreach committee to review what we had to decide how they want to move forward. And now that we're considering working with the monitors, we need to see what they have in mind to decide which route we want to take. At this point, I say that it's too early in the process to say either or. My opinion, I do think that there will be some changes. But that's just my opinion. This is a collective decision, so we have to, and if we bring other partners on, it's going to be an even greater collective. So I think that at this point, it's still really new and up in the air of how we're going to go about this.
Chair, question. So the old survey, could we get a copy of it so we can start looking at it?
Yes, we can have that sent out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, we also take into consideration the public feedback that we received. So we did hear Lou and everyone else speaking about the survey that was developed, and we're taking that into consideration as well.
Okay. So next on the agenda, if there's no more discussion in regards to the survey, was there anything else? Okay. Next on our agenda would be new business. The discussion of the outreach committee priorities in response to the consent decree, and the status conference feedback. We need to identify and prioritize outreach projects and activities based on insights and recommendations from the recent consent decree status conference, which was on 6/11 of 2025. So I would open that up for discussion. Whomever wants to begin.
Did everyone receive the email sent out by Alex Nordine regarding the consent decree status conference?
If you're not using your mic, can you turn it on? Because there's an echo. Thank you.
And,
Commissioner Miller, our guest is here. I'm sorry, Kincaid. Commissioner Kincaid, our guest is here. I was so confident.
Yes, it appears that our guest, Miss Angela Shute-Woodson, has arrived. And so, if you would like to join us up here, you are more than welcome. I will move my mess out of your way. So for the sake of, again, learning how to properly move this forward, can we just go back to the top of the meeting and then we can come back to this discussion later in the order that we had intended? Okay. So now that our guest has arrived, we are going to go back to the top of our agenda, which was the presentation on from the Community Relations Board, Angela Shute-Woodson. So we're going to have a presentation from her, and then we'll do a question and answer from both the committee members as well as the public.
I researched on that email that he sent, so it should be at the top. The green.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for my tardiness. I was trying to remember where Perkins was. Bless my heart, being in the city all my life. But I am happy to be here. I'm Angela Shute-Woodson, the Executive Director to the Community Relations Board. And I'm handing out some information just to give everybody kind of a quick overview of the Community Relations Board. The Community Relations Board was founded in 1945. We're celebrating 80 years of a board that was established by legislation. Most people seem to think that the Community Relations Board was founded by the mayors And actually, it was by people and the council people that designed this board. And it was really to build unity among different neighborhoods and communities. There was a lot of strenuous race relations and cultural tensions between East and West Siders, and as well as different Northeast and Southeast Siders as it related to the diversity of the city. And so the mayor and the legislators decided on March 5th to try to create this board. Now, how did the board get connected to doing these police meetings and so forth? And I did put this in the packet, and I'm kind of just doing this, I know off the top of my head, but it's more detailed in the packet I handed out. The board is made up of 14 individuals. Right now, we're missing just one council member. The council does appoint 2 people to the board off of the council, and then the rest of the members are chosen by the mayor. So I did list who the members are of our board in your packet. Reverend Charles Lucas is the chairman of the board and has been the chairman for a number of years, and I think Mayor Bibb is I want to say his 5th mayor. I think he started under Mayor Michael R. White, but most of the board has served beyond 1 or 2 mayors. Thank you. So to start about, as I was giving a little bit overview, my department is made up of 4 different divisions. One starting with the district representatives. The district representatives cover the 5 police districts. How did they come about? Back in 1966 with the Huff riots, there was more conversations about the tension between police and residents. And so the mayor at that time asked the Community Relation Board's chairperson and other leaders to come together to think of a way that they could calm some of the tensions down due to the Huff riots. And they thought having these joint meetings of residents and police, where police co-chair as well as a resident co-chair that live in the district, was a way to try to give a platform for police to be heard, but also for residents to tell their stories to police officers, but also to build unity, to figure out what other activities and engagement they could do to ease the tension among police and residents. That's how these community relation police district meetings started happening in the 5 districts. In order for a resident to be a co-chair, the resident has to live in the district. They're not paid. But they do have bylaws that they develop. It's actually the residents that develop the bylaws that kind of govern these committees. Our district reps kind of act as liaisons to those meetings. So what usually happens is from the officers, because they do have a co-chair as a commander, a co-chair as a resident of the district, they do have a secretary, and they also have a treasurer. That's kind of like their executive body. And they kind of decide and open up in their agenda platforms of what would the district or who the district would like to hear from. So usually the district reps in my office will go seek out the speakers that they wish to have at their meetings. They also will as well offer time for the commanders to speak, as well as take any concerns from the community. They also work together collectively to plan like safety fairs that we have in the community, coffee with a cop that we have in the community. So they try to do their very best to also create activities of engagement. In addition to just working with the police, they also deal with resident complaints and kind of mediation. So how does that work? If a resident calls, and let's say the number 1 call that we usually get is about the fence. If a resident decides they want to build a fence on the property and it is going over into the other resident's property, it can kind of cause some tension. As well as dogs on leashes, that's another one we get a lot of complaints about. If the dog's backyard leash goes over into another person's yard, our district reps will get calls about that. And these are kind of examples that I'm giving where they have to go out as district reps to offer mediation, if they can do mediation. They usually go themselves first. If they cannot to reach a resolution, then they usually bring along whoever the community engagement officer is of the police district to see if they can resolve it that way. We try very best to first resolve it as district representatives, And also getting maybe another district representative to attend with them before we go get our police officers to try to mediate the situation. But that's just giving you a few examples of the district reps. So that's the first part of the packet that I had put and went over with the district reps. And also I have another division, which is kind of our youth umbrella. So our youth umbrella consists of two areas. One is youth diversion. It was founded in 1999. It actually started in the Department of Safety. And after conversations with that mayor and council at the time, they felt it would work better in community relations. And youth diversion is actually a partnership that we have with the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court. It is working with them on low-level offense youth and putting them in a structured program without them necessarily serving time in a detention facility, and also trying to just get them on the right track so they don't get serious charges. My staff there consists of 2 caseworker specialists in addition to a manager. Usually these are cases that go before a magistrate, and then the magistrate itself will assign them to youth diversion. We are proposing, and I guess the good news, the new news that we've been promoting, and I got to share last week often, the city council did pass this. It's called our PASS program. That's our pre-arrest support services. And what this is a pilot that Cuyahoga received a grant. I'm going to be able to hire 1 staff person, and this is where we're going to be working in the 1st and the 5th district as a pilot. This is for officers. Instead of them arresting, taking the youth in, and then going through the court process, this will be them making a direct referral to the youth diversion program. Why did we request this? Because we're trying to prevent paperwork trails. We're trying to save a young person from having to have a record of any sort, and trying our best to catch this early on as a part of our restorative justice efforts we're trying to do in our office now. We've been going to a lot of restorative justice training since I've been the director. And this is one of the things that we met over a year with the police department and the commanders and the courts to figure out how we could arrive at this pilot, to see how it would work, to really give 18 and under an opportunity to try the structured diversion program early on to get them on the right track. And figure out maybe what even got them off into the wrong track. So we are looking forward to do that pilot as well. Often I get asked, and then before I go into my second part of our youth services we offer, we're often asked, what is the difference between my office and the Office of Youth and Family Success, the office that handles the preventive intervention office? I often stress to people, we are usually dealing with young people who are already in the system. They've already faced officers. They've already either gotten a case, unfortunately, by the juvenile court system or have already been serving time in the Ohio DYS system. They're not broken children in our group. They're just children that we just got to get back on the right track. And that's how we look at it in our office, and we speak about that a lot because preventive is usually trying to catch them before, and usually, unfortunately, the youth that we're faced with have already ran into some problems with the law. And so the next division that I have is my street outreach team. And my street outreach team is actually dealing with those youth that are incarcerated, from the Cuyahoga County Detention Facility to the Ohio Department of Youth Services. What most people don't realize is that Cleveland alone, youth occupies 71% of those facilities in the state of Ohio that detain youth. We occupy Indian River, Cuyahoga Hills, and part of Circleville. So my street outreach team does go to these facilities. They do work on a 60 to 90 day being released program because they become their mentors. We work with several partners that are in there providing all types of social service and curriculum building help, as well as even helping these young men and women get their GEDs while they're serving time. My team goes in as kind of a reinforcement too, but more or less preparing them to come back to Cleveland and back to the neighborhood and trying to make sure that they stay in touch with them so that they don't fall back into the trap that got them in the trouble in the first place to wind up in these facilities. Part of that is because they stay in the streets. Part of it's because some of them have served time. Some of them either as juveniles, some as adults. But they work very hard to make sure that these young men and women do not find themselves getting back in trouble, especially with the law. So they study, they know also the neighborhoods. They know where what's called the beefs, if there's different kind of beefs against gangs or families and what have you. They try to get as much street intelligence as they can to make sure that the young person is not falling back into just the wrong hands, because we really want them to be successful. And so that's kind of what the street team does. They do a lot. They also guide these young people back into the school systems. They do work with CMSD to make sure that they're acclimating back into CMSD and not having any problems. But also in addition, they work in CMSD to work with those that have had frequent absenteeism, to those that have had high tardiness or just have been suspended frequently within the schools. I know it sounds a lot of work, but I only have a staff of 6 people in this arena, and they're covering the entire CMSD network, both high schools and K through 8. We work very closely with Chief Dotson, the security of the schools, along with the principals, trying to identify those schools that kind of have the highest suspension or absenteeism rates to work with them. And the other division that we have under my umbrella is the cultural liaison. I have a faith liaison, I have a Hispanic liaison, and I have an Asian liaison. And we're happy to announce come July, we will have an LGBTQ+ liaison. These liaisons work very hard making sure we're building relations within these different cultural groups. And it's mainly not just with the safety forces, it's also with our departments. A lot of them don't understand what is recycling, what is the purpose of these different trash cans we often get asked that they have, and how to use them and why do we use them as a city. In addition to making sure they understand community development, economic development, to understand the licensing and permitting process. So we work very hard translating, as well as making sure they're acclimating in the neighborhoods well, and just making sure they're okay and not being harassed or intimidated because they chose to live in different neighborhoods, and people may not understand where they're from and some of their cultural differences. Our faith liaison does very much the same. And so one of the reasons why we advocated for an LGBTQ+ liaison this year with the help of City Council being supportive for us, because this is an arena that we have gotten a lot of complaints and intimidation of them living in certain neighborhoods, from flag burnings, of their pride flags, to their mailboxes being torn off, which my district reps now addressed. And because we kept looking at the increased number, we thought we really needed to hire someone from their community to help us build better relations and better understanding. In addition, this is a group, along with my district representatives, that deals with ethnic intimidation also. We do get quite a few ethnic intimidation requests that come to our office, where we try to go out and try to do our best to make sure we can resolve any differences. So that's all I have right now. I'm open to answer any questions, if that helps.
Well, thank you so much for that information. I know I personally have a couple of questions. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah, actually, Emo, you can start.
Okay, do I have to say through the chair? Yes. Okay, through the chair. Thank you, Executive Director Woodson, for being here. I really like that you mentioned the economic development as well. So I kind of wanted to figure out from you, is there any opportunities for community members to volunteer to help? I know you said your team has 6 people, then also maybe like the more people that get involved might have information on different jobs and things like that that we can get the youth into.
Sure, thank you for that question, to the chair and to the commission member. The whole purpose is really without the community, there is no community relations board. And I tell people, I actually have 3 people I report to. Everybody thinks I just report to the mayor. And even he and I laugh. I'm like, no, I report to the people first. I'm very clear what the oath was that I took for this position. And then second, of course, is to my board and then to the mayor. So I have three bosses, I uniquely like to say. But without the community kind of coming and joining with us on a lot of what we do, our partnerships are vital in our office. We are the second lowest budget under the umbrella of the general fund. Often people think we have tons of money and they think we have this big enormous staff. No, I only have a staff of 22 people. So the community we rely on heavily to work with and be in partnership to help us a lot, and especially with our young people. We are always looking for avenues, partnerships, mentors even. We have taken residents with us that if they have some type of motivation or coaching expertise, we have had them join us in group sessions with us at the facilities and so forth. And we're trying to connect them as much with jobs. It's always hard to find this particular group, as I tell people, where we are a little bit different from the preventive side because they've already faced some type of trouble. And we do have a hard time advocating for them to get them summer jobs in the summer months. And also trying to tell their story because some of them cannot work outside. If they were a part of a gang activity or what have you, it has been challenging to try to find these young people jobs where they're safe, where they're in a safe space. Because we're not trying to put them in harm's way either. So we're always open to that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I actually had a couple of questions. So I think my first question was in regard to the district meetings. And we've talked about them before. I know Sam and I have talked about them pretty extensively. My question is mostly around marketing, and I think that's something that's kind of high priority for me in terms of outreach overall. But what methods are we using to get this information to a broader Cleveland audience? Because I personally did not know that these meetings existed, and I've talked to people about them, and I've talked to a ton of people that are like, oh yeah, I didn't even know there was an option. So what marketing tools are we using, or can we begin using, and what partnerships can we develop to assist in that marketing so that more Clevelanders know that these meetings are a thing?
Thank you for that question to the chair and to the commissioner. This is something that I meet with my district reps on a regular basis. Could we do more? Yes. They just started promoting, before I got there, the way that they promoted the events is through kind of their own attendance sheet database, where they kept emailing and calling the same people that kind of just were regular attendees. I kind of challenged that and said, why are we posting up a flyer in a gas station? Why are we posting up a flyer in the corner store? Why don't we give them to the pastors and the churches? Why don't we ask and they insert it in the books? So this is something that they kind of looked at me in surprise, but I'm like, you have to build the audience. The other thing that I recognized when I came on as director, we really weren't rotating where the meetings were. If you're familiar with the first district, where they were having the meetings, I said, wait a minute, there's a whole diverse population on the other side within the first district, which is kind of your West Park, Camps Corner area, that they weren't even hosting meetings. And I said, we need to start rotating these meetings. And so the chairs have been open to that. And so I've been encouraging as much as possible, try to rotate your meetings. Even though they're meeting once a month, and I know they set their bylaws, I've kind of made a hint to the residential co-chairs that try to look at rotating your meeting, and when you redo your bylaws, maybe change that line, because the makeup of Cleveland is different, both economically and as far as diversity. They are now just starting to use social media, but social media is usually the police commander's page. So we're trying to get our own page, and I'm sure you all know, as being new commissioners or commissioners from the previous commission, it's a challenge to get things through that simple. It's easy for us on our own time to just set up a Facebook page or Instagram page, but you have to go through so many layers within city government just to try to do that. And we all know Instagram and social media period is the way to start marketing more. We're still awaiting, just to get certain approvals of what we can and what we can't. But that's something that we're very open to as well, and open to whatever suggestions to market more, because could they have more attendance? Absolutely. But it's also trying to get those that were there before me kind of out of old habits, and get them to recognize that we need to be open to some different methods.
Understood. Thank you for that. I think my next question was directly in regard to us as a committee. And I'm sure it probably wouldn't happen immediately, but like, what would be the process for us to, and I'm sure Sam, you've started to kind of try to work this out too, the process for us to have, to be on those agendas potentially, to be a part of those meetings, or to give some type of availability to the public once we do get them there.
To the chair and to the commissioner, I think the best way to start is with the liaison and the co-chairs. To establish, getting a standard agenda, because I don't even plan their agendas.
Right.
So I think that would be really to sit down with the co-chairs and the district rep liaison, just to set that. And I say those two purposely, because I love my commanders. I also know my commanders can be long-winded. And sometimes, so it's trying to make sure that they go and they let the commander know that this is going to be a standard agenda item or a standard presentation. And what does that look like, and which ones, you all want to be a part of, and so forth.
Okay. And then I think my final question was actually just strictly out of curiosity. You had mentioned the diversion programming that would take you through the program versus going to court, or going through the court system. So 2 questions. Just again, this is out of curiosity from my own understanding. Would that be up to the officer's discretion? Is that how that would work? When they face a situation or a call, they determine during that call whether or not they're diverting this youth through the programming, or whether or not this is something that's going to court, and is it based on the offense?
Sure. So to the chair and to the commissioner, it will be low-level offenses. Okay, just to make sure we're clear on that.
Okay.
And it's also low-level first-time offense, like they've never been in trouble before. So it will be a very kind of strict criteria. The officer will initially just fill out a brief form of maybe 4 to 5 questions assessment. It's really going to be my staff that will determine the next steps after that. There will be a lot of training that's going to occur before this rolls out. We do know it's ambitious, but we also know officers are really going to have to be trained on this. And they're about to be trained for a lot of reasons, because the youth might be scared and might come off retaliatory at the time. And so we don't want them to take that as a way that they need to make that offense more than what it is. It's just understanding and recognizing the fear and also their approach. So that's why I said it took us a year to kind of really explore this. It was nothing we wanted to rush into it. We've been looking at other cities, trying to model kind of what they're doing. And again, concerns about the bind over. I'm not even gonna, that was one of the flags that raised on this, but also looking at other cities that have had success with this approach, and the fact of how many young people ended up not going ever before the court really did turn their life around. So there is going to be a lot of intense training with this, with us, and with juvenile court as well. And juvenile court is fully aware this is going to be a process.
Yeah. I love the way that it sounds. And then my final question was also out of curiosity, why the 1st and the 5th districts to start the process? Was there a reason?
To the chair, to the commissioner, the reason was because they volunteered. When we met, we said, do you want us to choose? And they said no, they wanted to be the first to pilot. So if the pilot works in the fashion we're all hoping, we are going to roll that out. Because that was some of the council people's concern. What about the 3rd district? What about the 4th district? And we told them, we said, once we get this started, if the numbers and if it goes the way we hope it goes, we do hope to roll this out to the other districts as well.
That's awesome. That is very exciting information to me. Yes, Chairman Miller.
Commissioner Miller.
Commissioner. I can't get it right, Commissioner Miller.
Okay,
Hi, again, welcome. I would like to say thank you for being proactive with the PASS program. I love that we have something that we can be proactive and help our juveniles, well, our children, our children. And so they won't get caught up in that system and get a rap sheet and, get a record. Also want to know, since the CRB regularly communicates with the community and knows, basically track neighborhood, concerns, can you give us some insight as a committee on where we should start as far as doing our outreach, and forming work groups? Because, I'm sure you have the numbers that we can, really make a difference, so.
Sure. So to the chair and to the commissioner, work with us. I mean, I think we're very open to trying to figure out how to make this work for all of us. I think as I share with my team, we don't have all the answers. But we're willing to work with everybody in partnership as much as possible so they understand. We often get asked, what's the difference? The Civilian Review Board, what's the difference of CPC? And so we're always trying to explain, what is the difference? Because often the district reps do encounter complaints, especially complaints of officers. So we tell them all the time, go to both, learn about both. And we consider this to be a safe space where residents can come and feel free to speak about any issues that they're running into because of the makeup and the uniqueness of this commission and what it means, and just being in tune to the legislation of what it stands for. So I think that we could probably work together to explore that, because it is a huge distrust. Even of my department, there's a huge distrust. And it's just how to build that trust back with residents and just overall government. We recognize that sometimes we're too aligned. And then what we're trying to tell them, no, we're trying to do better. We're trying to make sure we're addressing the needs of the people in the best way we can.
Question. Chair, Ms. Woodson. My question is, so when you get the kids, where do they come from? Are they housed at the juvenile center, or are they part of a community base? Just where the kids are coming from? I know are they being arrested already? Or are they part of the system? Just the reason why I ask, because there are some programs that I can give you information on, but certain programs, we need to know where the kids are coming from, and so we can work with them. I guess that's the.
Sure. To the chair and to the commissioner. So, in the youth diversions case, they're actually currently being referred from juvenile court, from a magistrate. It's usually a youth that's under 18 that's faced no type of prior history of ever being arrested. That gets referred into that program. For what the street outreach does, most of it is just, sometimes it's youth just off the street. We do something called safety hours. So that team, in addition to the work in the schools and the facilities, are out anywhere from 11 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning. And sometimes they engage youth just going to a gas station. And one thing we found out is most of these kids are just hungry. So even though they're breaking the curfew, they're going to the gas stations because the gas stations have food. And if they have a mom that's either not home or just too tired to cook, or there's no food in the house, they find themselves out at night, going to the gas station to get some type of food. That may seem normal to some people. And then to some people, it may not seem normal. But these are some of the youth that they engage with that, yes, we are trying to connect them. We become a mentoring source. But trust and believe, we always say in my office, who are we passing them on to next? Because we realize they still need some type of structure and to be still engaged with some type of activities. The other set of youth come either from the school system, from us working in the schools, and the other set of youth come from inside the facilities, because we do work in Metzenbaum, we do work in Quincy, with the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Detention Facility, and we work with the state of Ohio. And those are what I consider the most precious of precious, because they're serving time on a state level, and when they come back, they need a lot of hands-on. A lot of them don't even want to go home after they serve time in these facilities, because home is where a lot of these problems have started. And home has been the one pushing them into some of this illegal activity. And so we struggle often trying to figure out where can we place them or what can we do to help them, because these young men and women do not want to go back to that lifestyle. And so we try to work very hard to put them with organizations that we know that will really remember that they lost part of their childhood in this process. Because often it's disappointing to say we have to remind the facilities these are still kids, these aren't adults. But because they've lost the time as a kid, they don't want to go back to being inside that facility. So we're always trying to match them with services, programming, and like I said, mentors. I can't say that enough, is getting enough mentors, because I'm always asked what type of mentor. I said, just be yourself. I said, these kids just want somebody that they can talk to. And if they can get that, that speaks volumes to them.
So, through the chair, so I just had a few sort of requests / questions. I wanted, so you said that the district policing committees have, they all have their bylaws, but I've heard differently, so I wanted to know if it would be possible to request for this committee a copy of the bylaws for the 5 districts for the district policing meetings. And then, because I'm just wondering if the bylaws are all the same for each district or if they're different. I've heard that they're different. So I just want to kind of look at that. And then the second thing is that I would want, I think the programming that you described is great. I mean, as an educator, anything that's going to help the youth, and I think as an educator, I've seen exactly what you're saying, that oftentimes the core of the challenges for the kids are coming from home. So you even see it at school where sometimes kids are trying to get involved in all types of activities because they want to spend less time, at home. And I think we saw that. I think the most glaringly with COVID, right? I definitely think I saw that a lot. So I appreciate that. But I think with the work that we have to do together, I think it starts with the consent decree. So I would want to talk a little bit more about paragraphs 23, 24, 25, 26 of the consent decree. Because in one of the things that we have to do together is we have to get the city into compliance with those paragraphs that relate directly to the consent decree. And then my third thing was that you mentioned the diversion program, and that it will be piloted between the districts 1 and 5. And so you mentioned that there would have to be some training for the officers, and I just wanted to sort of, and I know you're developing a program, but training is one of the areas that the commission has authority over, has final authority over. And so I wanted to know, I mean, is that a program or training that will have to come through us? And if so, I think that's a conversation that should get started. I just don't know the extent of what type of training you're talking about, but I know that's in our wheelhouse. So I wanted to know, again, just send us over the bylaws. We can talk about how we work together to get into compliance with paragraphs 23 to 26, and sort of you can share what you know about the extent of the training so that we can gauge if the CPC will have to get involved somehow with approving that training.
Sure. Let me start first with the district bylaws. So yes, you are correct. They're all different. And again, because each district, believe it or not, is uniquely different. It's hard for people when I say that. What happens in the first district is actually unique as far as with the third district. A lot of it is economics, culture, just to be honest, and also the residential chairs are different. So therefore, some people's bylaws reflect more structure, and then some people's bylaws are actually more open, if that makes sense. So I'll be more than happy. And I guess this was something kind of created before I got there, so we haven't really talked about or explored, should there be a standard bylaws for these meetings. We've kind of been letting them develop this organically, and again, because we don't want to rob the voice and the power of the residents that are kind of running this. So that's kind of the rationale behind why we haven't really formally made sure they were all consistent across the board with the bylaws. As far as working together for compliance, I think we are definitely in a position to work now together. I know we tried to approach this body when it first developed, and we somehow could not seem to get a sit down. So we have been very open to wanting to sit down and explore this. I know my office prior to, in the previous commission, we actually used to house Anthony Houston, who was assigned to the commission when it first got started in 2015, and his office was basically housed in our office, and he's the one that kind of educated myself and a lot of the staff of how the relationship and the importance of making sure the bodies work together. So we're very aware we need to work together, and we're very open to doing that. And as far as training for the juvenile court, because this is a grant, I need to explore that a little deeper too. Because juvenile court is kind of the one that's receiving the funds actually. It's just being piloted in Cleveland, and we were fortunate that they chose Cleveland because they could have chose Euclid or Cleveland Heights. So I need to really ask them some questions on their end and be happy to report back to you as well. And I'll make them aware that it is in the consent decree about the training being the wheelhouse of this body.
Thank you for asking that question, because that was actually gonna be my next question when she mentioned the training, whether or not that was something that we needed to immediately partner with so that it can be added to the bulk of work that the training committee is currently facing. So I see that several hands went up at once. So I'll start with you, Commissioner Mason, and then we'll work our way around, okay?
Ms. Woodson, did you know that the county has a training program for the youth diversion?
Yeah.
And so is that similar, the same training that you're looking to probably get the Cleveland officers into, or is that something different? Because they usually train the officers.
To the chair, to the commissioner, this is like a new pilot. So this is a little bit different than regular diversion that's happening now, where they actually turn the youth's name into the actual court system. And then from there, a magistrate or the prosecutor will recommend the youth going into diversion. This is really starting with the officer, like from the minute the officer appears, that the officer to make the recommendation of the young person going into the program. So that's why I said I have to check with the court, because the court actually wants to see if this would work. And again, it's for the reasons of just having that record, because even though they're in youth diversion, by the magistrate or prosecutor, their name still goes in the system. And often these young people get to be 25, 27 and realize there is something that pops up, especially if they go for a job with high sensitivity and background checks, and they come to find out they're still caught up in a juvenile situation that can't allow them to get the job. And so I've been kind of talking about this for a number of years, that I said it's mainly, even though they're in a diversion program, and then a lot of them didn't even know they even served time in the juvenile system. They think once they're done, it just rolls off once they become an adult. And they don't realize they gotta go back to make sure that matter is resolved and sealed. So there's a whole lot of education in this that we've learned. And I'm hoping one of the things this fall, I don't know if we're gonna get it off this fall, but I pray we do, that we would love to partner with the commission on is some type of youth expungement and trying to explore that so people understand. Because even at a lot of these expungement clinics, there's so many adults that come up and they're having youth records and didn't even know they had the youth record, and that was preventing them from doing a lot.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I just want to add one more thing to make you aware of. Job Corps, because they misplaced a lot of those babies. You already know where I'm going with that. We gotta
probably, do something to wrap our arms around them and make sure they don't get caught up in the system.
Agreed. No? Hi, I think you know my face very well. Sorry, it's not like I'm a beauty pageant contestant, that kind of situation. It's just like I'm kind of a community busybody. I go to all kinds of things because all the issues in our communities have been a huge accumulations of decades of non-reacting policies. Now, I have to repeat myself that I'm so happy your involvement is to make sure we finally have some proactive actions. Now, these things, they don't change the whole community overnight either, but it's more than a good start because I have known you that when you go out to do something, you actually, it's not for the name, not just to look pretty, you actually have a good plan to take care of different aspects. So here, I would like to have some feedbacks for you. The first thing you mentioned, sometimes when in the community meetings with the police, now this is the first part. My involvement with police commission since this round of consent decree started 2015. But the problem here is, even till today, lots of the community member, they are still in this particular situation. They don't like police. They don't trust police. They don't like government. They don't trust government. But when they need help, first number they call, 911, just for example. So I would have a suggestion using the example you mentioned earlier. For example, right now, lots of people complain because I want to set up a fence. Actually, it's prevent my dog go to my neighbor's yard. But my neighbor may not know my intent. The neighbor will complain the way I build the fence is whatever. Now, at this point, we assume no criminal activity. That means, for example, in this case, my dog has not really injured my neighbor's children yet. So, being proactive, maybe it's better to consider not to get police involved to do the mediation. We have another organization called Cleveland Mediation Center. Maybe it's good to direct the mediation work for them to do, but if unfortunately my dog already bits the children of my neighbors, now because there could be a criminal charge, whatever, then yes, we will have police involved or even going to the court, which people actually don't like to do anyway. So your idea is pretty good, but I would like to suggest this particular layer. In that case, that actually encourage community members to also become proactive, to work on prevention. They would like to come out to the meeting to mention the situation before we actually have a serious incident. Then you have to get police involved. In that case, everybody's happy. One particular principle people they have known me about for police is, I do not believe police should come out to do the job which they are not trained for. This is more towards social work instead of the actual police work. So if we can save the police out, not handling these situations so they can go out to do things they are trained for, maybe that's a better way to handle the situation. In that case, people will understand. When I come to this meeting, police actually are helping me to give me other options. It's not like we definitely have to go to police to be agonized, and maybe we have to go to court, those kind of things. That's one suggestion.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for your question, but I do have to limit it to a time. So if we can
Yeah,
bring it to a conclusion.
the other thing is, even myself, we have found out, for us trying to participate in the relation board, even to be a volunteer, sometimes there's obstacles. They always, kind of turn people down. And this, I think we should try to find out if there's any way to streamline the process or to find out the barriers. Why lots of people, they want to get involved, but they are refused. That's another thing. Sure, there are other details I would like to say, but since we only have a limited time, probably I will catch up with you later.
I was gonna say, feel
Thank
free to reach out if I can say that, and we can discuss any other ideas further, but thank you so much for your question and your comment. Did you want to respond to that, or are you ready to? Absolutely.
Thank you for those comments, and we're trying to be as proactive as possible, but I really would like to talk to you more about trying to volunteer and not being kind of welcome. One thing I've been working diligently since I've been in the position is to make sure that we are making spaces welcoming for everyone to participate, because we need everybody. So I really would like to talk to you more about that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to ask the question. Director Woodson, always good to see you out, ma'am. It's been a long day for you today, no doubt. Quick question, Director, did I understand you to say that 71% of all of the juveniles confined in the state of Ohio come from the city of Cleveland?
But right now, we occupy 71% of the beds in Indian River, Circleville, and Cuyahoga Hills. Yes.
I wanted to clarify that number. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. So,
So I had the pleasure of hearing you speak at the last consent decree status conference held on June 11th. And I was really impressed and like what I heard. And you listed a number of community events coming up. Would you mind sharing those with us today and let people know where they can find out more information about those upcoming events?
Sure. So we start our 3-on-3 basketball, which is actually starting tomorrow. That's going to be at Esterbrook. Because we also have midnight or hoops after dark, if you like to call it, we decided to create a version for young people under 17, so that they could play. But it's not as competitive as hoop after dark. Anyone can come. We also did it purposely to make sure the young people I just spoke about could come to a safe space, not be judged, not be asked, but just kind of can be a kid. So it's really a fun time. Tomorrow is our community day, and then on Thursday is actually the competition. So we invite everybody to come out because, one, it gives the young people a chance to see people, that they get to meet, they like to network. We give out hot dogs, chips free, but they do some drills, but we also allow opportunities to speak to the young people. And we usually invite in different coaches, meaning like kind of motivational coaches for the young people to hear from. And we do prepare a match for our officers to play against the kids, which is always good because, and we do it throughout the school year too, and I can make sure you get that calendar. Mainly because, again, we're trying to build trust. And one reasons why we don't trust is because sometimes we see those in uniforms, and we're learning this universally across the board. We don't even care if you're from a different country and you've moved here. The uniform still kind of intimidates people. So we recognize in community relations, we have to create some spaces where they can see officers can laugh, have fun, and just kind of be amongst the rest of us, if that makes any sense, if I'm saying that correctly. Another event that we have coming up, we have a safety fair this Saturday, and I think we can get you more information on that in the 2nd district because I can't remember where that's at off the top of my head. But that is coming up this Saturday. In addition, we have a couple of safety fairs this summer that I can make sure that this body receives the flyer. And also you can set up a table. I mean, you all can set up information tables at our events. The safety fair, true, is to learn more about safety. You all are a part of safety. And so I don't want the commission to feel like they don't have an invitation to do that because you all are part of the safety umbrella with the rest of us. So we will make sure that you get all the information to that. Feel free also to reach out to Tammy Hannah. She can give you a very comprehensive calendar of all the events that we have going for the rest of the summer and all the way into the fall.
Tammy Hannah.
Tammy Hannah. She's the manager over the district representative.
Do we have any more questions or discussion for our guests today? Well, I personally want to thank you on behalf of the CPC and the Outreach Committee. This information was very valuable, and we appreciate it. I'm sorry?
Later that down the road.
Of course. Yeah, this information was very valuable, and we look forward to continue working relationship. And we would actually like to talk about scheduling some time for you to come back and maybe, continually give the public an update. As this is the Outreach Committee, I think that we all have the same mission in this committee in particular to definitely work toward providing that trust that you were referring to, and to establishing better working relationships with all of the different committees, departments, etc., that are essentially all focused on the same mission, and we need to kind of realign around that mindset. So we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we are on to our new business. So to reiterate new business, we are discussing our priorities as an outreach committee in response to this consent decree status conference feedback. And we are going to identify some priorities and particular projects based on insights from that status update on 6/11/2025. Is there anyone who would like to begin discussion?
I'll start the discussion. So I attended that status conference, and there were a few things mentioned, but number one were paragraphs 23, 24, 25, and 26 of the consent decree. That states, working jointly with the Commission, Cleveland Department of Police, and Community Relations Board, CRB, we will work with the district policing committees, formerly called district community relations committees, to facilitate regular communication and cooperation between the Cleveland Department of Police and community leaders at the local level. These district policing committees should meet of a minimum of every quarter. Working jointly, and this is going on to paragraph 24. Working jointly with the Commission, Cleveland Department of Police, and Community Relations Board will develop a mechanism to recruit and expand the membership of the district policing committees, each of which should include a representative of cross-section of community members, including, for example, representatives of social service providers, faith leaders, and local business owners, youth, etc. from the district. Each district policing committee also will include at least one Cleveland police officer from the district. Cleveland Department of Police will work with the commission to select officers for each district policing committee. Paragraph 25. CDP will work closely with the district policing committees to identify strategies to address crime and safety issues in their district. In developing appropriate strategies, the district policing committee should consider and address law enforcement priorities and community policing strategies in their district, and should address any concerns or recommendations about specific CDP policing tactics and initiatives in their district. Paragraph 26. At least annually, each district policing committee will represent its identified strategies, concerns, and recommendations to the commission. At the same time, an officer who is a member of the district policing committee will present it to the commission's Cleveland Department of Police's assessment of ways to address the barriers to implementing the strategies, concerns, and recommendations of the committee. So this is directly from the consent decree, and it just talks about how the commission, the Cleveland Department of Police, Community Relations Board should all work together to make sure these district policing committee meetings are successful. And I think that's just something we should start the conversation about. I know Sam, I asked her to sit at the table because she's been attending these meetings, and she has brought a lot of feedback to us. I know Director Shoot Wilson gave us an overview of what the job of Community Relations Board is. We need to identify what our role is and how we want to execute our role in moving this consent decree initiative forward. So I'm opening up to discussion about ideas and what we think could be possible ideas and initiatives to start working together on this.
I was gonna, I think it's paragraph 24. I think one of the issues is, and I think this is related to where we are with these commander appointments as well, is that what has been happening traditionally in these DPC meetings is that they have a civilian as a co-chair, but they usually pair them up with whoever the commander is. And I think that we should have a discussion about who the police representative on those district police committees are, police committee meetings are, because we have seen a lot of turnover with commanders. We've seen a little instability with the commander appointments, and I think that their default has been to put the commanders as the police liaison or representative on that committee, but the paragraph 24 doesn't say that it automatically has to be a commander. And I think that if we may have officers that have been in these districts for 10, 15, 20 years, that people that are more reliable. So I don't know, I think that's, as we talk about getting into compliance, particularly with those 4 paragraphs, I think that there should be a discussion, just the same way that there's nothing that says that a commander has to be someone who worked for the district, for the police department, right? A commander could be somebody from outside of the division of police, and I think that the police representative can also be somebody who's not a commander. And I think that we should, as we're moving forward, we should have a discussion about that. And I did have a couple of things that we were talking about. I think that I think it might be, and I think this will be something we'll push for from all the committees, but maybe we can look at the amount of time that we have left until these current terms are going to expire. So like my term is going to expire in December of next year, right? So we'll have this full 2025. So we have there are going to be 7 appointments that are going to expire in December of 2025. So this will be our commission once we get the final person from the Black Shield. 2026.
So I was gonna say.
2026, I'm sorry, y'all. 2026.
Oh, God.
Sorry. But maybe we could come up with, like we had done previously, we did like an 18-month plan. So maybe this committee with the other committees could do something similar. Maybe it would be like a 14-month plan or 15-month plan, or however much time when we get it done. So maybe that could be a place where you can put your priorities as a committee, and then we can kind of line those up with the other committees on the commission. And then in a discussion we had today, I think that as the outreach committee, we should get as many of these meetings out of this office as possible. And I know that Sam, works on that. But I think that of all the committees, this committee should be out in the community as much as possible. So I would say we can make that a priority. And then the other thing that we talked about a little bit earlier before the committee came into the office is we would like to know sort of, and Sam can talk a little more about this, about we want to figure out what wards we're all in, what districts we're all in, and then we can use that to sort of come up with some type of like schedule, calendar, to have more presence in the community, in our own ward or district meetings. We can sign up for that. And then there was one more thing that I had here. I think if I have something else, I think that's pretty much all I got. But that would be sort of my priorities, getting back into the community, think definitely working with Sam and focusing on these consent decree paragraphs when it comes to working with the community relations board.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Yes, Commissioner May.
Chair to Sam. Chair to Sam, could you kind of tell us what our obligation be when we go to these community meetings? I mean, I have attended a couple of them, and I'm not really sure what it is that I'm supposed to be doing.
Through the chair to Commissioner Mason. Your priorities at the district policing committee's meetings or at all community event meetings?
I've only attended 2, and I'm planning on attending 5th District tomorrow.
Okay.
But I need to know what is it that I'm doing. I'm just coming just to say hi, or am I doing something?
Right. So what I would say that your priority is for when you're attending those meetings is one is your presence. So, you know, having business cards or anything like that, bringing information about the commission, bringing materials, and I can work on that with you all. But then secondly, once we are able to get onto the agenda of these meetings, your presence will be to potentially to report out, you know, maybe what the commission's working on. So kind of what I do is when I go to those meetings, I introduce myself, say who I am, give them updates on what the commission is doing, essentially like, you know, we have a meeting, our full commission is meeting on this date, we have these committee meetings coming up, or we have this event coming up, and you know, this, that, and the third, right? So essentially reporting out what the commission is doing, and then also requesting feedback from the community, right? You know, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you know, here's our business cards, here's our main office line, all those things. And then sometimes specifically the commission will have things they're working on, right? You all will have specific projects or anything that's coming up, and maybe potentially giving a presentation on that to the community. So the responsibility of you all being there is truly to show up and engage. And then once we officially can get on these agendas, it will be to present out to the community, kind of what it is you all want to relate to the community and answer any questions that they may have for you all.
In addition to that, I just sent you all, outreach committee members, a copy of our previous CPC framework, our 18-month plan. And one of the things listed for outreach was, one project was Cleveland Department of Police Community Engagement and Community Confidence Assessment. So paragraph 17C of the consent decree says we will conduct on an ongoing basis, assess Cleveland Department of Police community activities and make recommendations for additional strategies for CDP to consider to increase community engagement with the community confidence, to increase the community confidence with the community, with the CPD. So I think that it would be hard for us to conduct an assessment and give that information if we don't attend these type of meetings. So we need to just engage with CDP as they engage with the community so that we can assess what's going on, see what's working, determine what's not working, and make these conduct this assessment to make these recommendations.
Through the chair, since I live in 5th District, I have been in going to those meetings, but it's hard to get with the person that runs them. So I found best practice was to arrive early and ask if you can be put on the agenda. And if you can't, then they'll put you on the next month. But that's just what I found worked best with those meetings as far as getting on the agenda.
To the chair, and I would say if you do want to be placed on the agenda, oh, okay, I understand. Okay, so that you were saying that going in person helps.
Yes.
Sam, have you had any success with reaching out to the leaders of the DBC meetings?
Through the chair, I usually connect with the district reps. So if you need a list of who is the district reps, the reps for each district, I can give you those. I have their contacts. I essentially email them and let them know. I have started to see in 2nd District, if you would like to make a comment or be on the agenda, they have a section for announcements. You can sign up when you arrive at Second District. That's something I've seen started being done. But being placed on the agenda, I usually reach out to the district reps. But arriving early too, that is also helpful. So whatever method works. Yeah, whatever method works. But if you would like to be placed on the agenda, and you're having a hard time reaching out to folks, just reach out to me and I will circle back with them or follow up with them or reach out to them myself. I also have their numbers, so I can reach out to them on your behalf.
So if I may, I've been kind of hearing all this and compiling some ideas to start like addressing some of the things that we can absolutely do very quickly and easily. So to all of your point about our obligations to the consent decree, it seems like there's a ton more involvement that we're required to have than we've been able to have before. And so I think that one way to kind of immediately start being involved with getting more people into these meetings, some of the things that we were talking about with Ms. Woodson, I think that if we take an initiative to some of the marketing, utilizing our platform, I have some ideas about some different content that we can start creating. I think that if also each of us suggests, not just from this committee, but from the entire commission, if we can really quickly, from our particular community, suggest maybe 3 to 5 people that we should reach out to, and we could just compile it as a list, right? If everybody suggests, I know 3 to 5 people in this community that could be good resources to these meetings, we can compile them as a list, and then someone can volunteer, like I can start reaching out to them, letting them know what it is we would like them to do in terms of showing up for the meetings or potentially volunteering or, introducing them to whoever is running these meetings. And we can very easily that way, through our own personal networks, get people involved, and we can utilize them to assist us with that marketing, even if it's just from a social media perspective, right? I know some people who are extremely active in my neighborhood that have a huge following, that organize for a living, that would absolutely include these meetings in their agendas and telling people about them. And that's marketing that's completely free to us, to the city, So we could start by quickly kind of compiling some of those names and appointing someone to do that outreach to them and say, hey, this is what we need from you. I also think that it could be very helpful to Commissioner Mason's question, if maybe we collectively developed maybe a 5-minute presentation that's kind of standard about who and what we are, that would give a high level overview to the public. So at any meeting that we go to, we are all, I want to say, kind of scripted in the fact that we can explain it. Yes, we can explain it to the public the same way each time. And then we can adjust it from there, depending on what we're working on what we want to present. So it's like every single time it can start with, I am, such and such commissioner for the CPC. This is who we are. This is what we do. And then from there, we can say, and currently in the month of June, this is what we're working on. This is what we like to present. But we can compile that or have, someone like Sam put those additional things on there. And then we all know what those are, so that when I attend a meeting, I'm giving the same information as my colleague, versus us trying to have to kind of come up with something each time. We can create kind of a standard script for ourselves, and then allow the public to ask whatever questions they have. And I think that would make us more prepared to effectively answer those questions in a way that positively represents us and that we all are comfortable with. Does that make sense? Because I would hate for, one of us to go and represent one thing, and it's like the rest of the commission is like, well, wait a minute, that's not what we intended to, represent. And when it's not one of the 2 chair people who are usually our typical representative, when it comes to outreach, I think we should kind of be aligned in that way. And then I just wanted to second your request for those bylaws from each of those districts. I think alongside the list of who is running those meetings, if we could request immediately to see what those bylaws look like so that we can start inserting ourselves and enforcing some of the obligations that have been placed on us, because I don't think that we can effectively do that if we don't know what the rules are. Yes.
But like through the chair, like for example, just a discussion we're having right now. If I go to, like, for one, the responsibility for like determining who will be on the agenda is supposed to come through the co-chair of that district and not the commander. But just as we were talking, it sounds like how I would do that in District 1 already looks different than how I'm going to do that in District 2. So it feels like there's like some discretion there that maybe should not be there. And I do think the same day we were talking about that if, you know, Commissioner Mason goes and does a presentation in the community, or you do it or I do it, we're going to give the public the same information. And I feel that when it comes to these district policing committees, we know that there are, every area of the city is going to be a little bit different for its own reasons. But that doesn't mean that if I'm a community member, if I'm just interested in just knowing what's going on, I shouldn't get a completely different experience depending on what district committee that I'm going to. So I think there should be a balance between them having some flexibility to kind of address what's specifically going on in their district, but overall there should be like some things should just be standardized. Like the way that I would get on the agenda should be the same for first district as it is for third or fourth or fifth, right? And so I just think that, you know, as we look at the paragraphs, particularly 24 and 25 of the consent decree, it says, you know, it doesn't say we have authority over them. It says we have to work jointly, right? And so I just think that these are the type of conversations that we need to have. And I think it would be important for the community to kind of know what to expect from these district policing meetings. And I also think that we should, in paragraph 25, have a discussion about who the police representatives will be for those districts.
So as the newly appointed chair of this committee, how comfortable would everybody be once Sam gets me that list, if I start kind of reaching out to them individually, potentially try to set up a meeting with them to maybe discuss what these bylaws look like and try to coordinate standardizing certain processes, not just for our use, as you stated, but for the community's use as well.
And I was gonna say, maybe, because we were thinking of that, and I would say maybe get all of those co-chairs involved in this process of standardizing this, so that way, you know, everybody's voice can be included, because even though we think this process should be standardized, that doesn't mean they can't execute it in their own unique way.
Correct.
So they can execute it however their community likes, but as John, Dr. Adams stated, certain things should be uniform in regards to this. And I think it's just a way to protect people's and citizens' rights. Honestly, from a lot of the feedback we've been getting, that may be an issue. So I believe that this is a huge issue. I think maybe working with Sam on this may be helpful.
Just so you're aware, there's been some challenges with the DPCs that we've been aware of for some time. And so this is a conversation that has come to the work group meetings that we have with the monitoring team and the DOJ and the police accountability team and the law department. And I know that there are some conversations happening with the monitoring team and the police accountability team to kind of do kind of like a general overview assessment to kind of look at sort of what the challenges are and then to come up with a way to address them. So maybe not, I would say for now, because you're the chair now, I would say communicate directly with Angela and maybe not go as far as, the co-chairs. I think there's like a chain of command thing that they want to make sure that we're respecting. But I would say before you move on those items, I would say contact the monitoring team, contact Mr. C, and I would say contact Dr. Lee Anderson from the police accountability team, because I think they've already started some legwork on it, and so we wouldn't want to kind of overlap or stop what they're doing. But I think you're on the right track. But I just want to just make you aware that that conversation has started with the monitoring team and the police accountability team, and then maybe now that you're chair, you can kind of insert yourself as our leader from this committee into whatever they're already coming up with. But that conversation has started.
Okay, and thank you for that. So I will do that. So Mr. C, I'll connect with you soon. One other thing that I had written down, and right now these notes are crazy, but I was wondering what it would look like for us to create. So something that Angela Woodson said while she was here, and Shoot Woodson said while she was here, that really just kind of jumped out at me was her desire to do a lot more outreach in a very simple and kind of old school way to some of our community centers, churches, schools, gas stations, etc. What would it look like if we were to create a calendar, a monthly calendar, something that we could select and for the purpose of being cost effective? When I say this, because then I think about the cost of printing and developing these things, right? But if we were to select some really high traffic, high target spaces in each of these districts, for example, I live on Eddie Road. Corey is a huge church, right? Over there on St. Clair, they have a lot of community involvement. I believe that it would be as simple as giving someone on the church board this information every month, and that they would, with no problem, either add it to a bulletin board or maybe mention it during service, etc., as a very simple, community engaged way of saying, hey, this information is free to the public and very useful for your congregation. If we could create that calendar and shoulder the minimum cost of printing it out and getting the information to these people every month, or even if we create that list, letting them know that this information will be coming to them every month, and email it, which is completely free, and just request directly that they share the information as we share it with them. If we could create a monthly calendar, I think that would be an extremely easy, and we can include our meetings and then community events that we know about as well.
It's funny you say that because we were actually in discussions today. Our community outreach coordinator Samantha is actually in the process of creating a monthly calendar for these meetings. So this may be, like you said, as easy as emailing this out to folks. So maybe that's something us as commissioners could do, or something the outreach committee could do, is to get this list of community stakeholders in each district to see which organizations we can blast this out to.
I mean, we can actually create a form if that would make it easier, and send out the form, and they can fill it out with their organization, their contact information, and then we can compile it that way and make an email list specifically for this monthly calendar, and then we can just add people to it as more people request, access to this information. And also that calendar would be something that we could post on our site, right, and on our Instagram page. Monthly as well. So I think it's a lot of very cost effective, even free methods. It may take a little time, but it doesn't have to cost, and we can reach a lot more people.
You can even add those, through the chair, those community relations, like those activities that they have, like the 303 basketball, just things in the community, safety fairs and all that on there. I was just nodding the sound. We need to add that stuff to our webpage.
Through the chair, to the chair, something you just said, I know we have like a listserv where if we make a press release or we want to make some type of public announcement, we've got a list for that. But maybe kind of, I don't know if you did it on purpose or not, but like what I heard you was like, maybe what we need to start doing is building, every time we go somewhere, people say that they're interested in working on a work group or something. People say they're interested in doing some type of work for the community. But what if we have like some type of QR code or some way, even we just have them write their information down. But what if we start to create like a list of just people who express interest in doing work for the committee, the
Yeah.
commission, like work groups.
It would be like a
And then
leaflet.
we open up a work group, or we need some, you know, participation or attendance. We like, cause like for training, like, you know, we've had, public events where police have done reality-based training for the community, right? So maybe we have that one listserv that we've had, but that could be like reporters and people from the city, you're just trying to get it out to like the structures of the city, right? But maybe we can slowly build a group of people who have expressed interest, and then we can blast when we have events, or if we need someone for work groups, maybe we can, you know, maybe one day we want to go knock on some doors for the community survey or something.
I was
These
gonna,
would be the people that would help, right?
I would, through the chair, I was gonna say that, one thing I found very, very effective is old school, the door-to-door outreach. It still, to me, is one of the most effective ways to get out to the community, because there's a number of people that may not, you know, be on social media or things like that. A lot of people, I mean, nowadays in Cleveland do not like to go to gas stations. And we all know why. So I think door-to-door outreach would be amazing if we can get some volunteers, or just have certain days where commissioners and those CRB folks and maybe some of the people at the district police committee meetings that are like already engaged citizens, we can get out there in each district and prepare for the upcoming meeting.
Through the chair, I wrote down street team. So I was thinking like a street team, you know, as far as the different, you know, to go to the door-to-door, different street teams for different committees and different events in the community.
Yeah, so what it sounds like is that we are creating a lead list, which is great. And that's a really great resource and a really easy way to compile people's information that volunteered. Also, I think a question would be, is there any funding or is there anything in the budget at all that would allow it? So drawing from my experience with Midtown, for example, there are often street teams when we go door to door in the community, and they offer. So, for example, the last one was actually in regard to identifying parcels of land that are city owned, and then there was an application that we were using to photograph the land and, you know, kind of inform the city what's on the property currently or what uses the community feels those parcels of land can have. Right? That's just an example. The team that was developed to do that work, to actually go out into the city and survey the land, the city got a grant to pay them $20 an hour for up to 4 hours at X amount of hours a week, and they were able to hire 15 people to do that work at that rate. Is there any available funding, or is that something that we can explore if we were to create a street team? Even if it were something very minimal, it is a great incentive for people to say, hey, we'll pay you 15 or 20 bucks an hour to go out door to door for 3 hours. Even if it's only one day a quarter, we want to, you know, get this information out to people, and we need to do some door to door. Is there any availability, or is that something that we can discuss, that we can find some funding for it so that we can incentivize it a little bit more?
So, to the committee through the chair, I think that could happen a couple of ways. I think one, hopefully we will have a budget chair soon. But I think that would be a discussion that you would then have to have with the Budget and Grants Committee.
Okay.
I think they will have to look at the budget, and then I'm not sure, and you can correct me, but it sounds like if we did something like what you're proposing, I feel like some type of RFQ or something would have to be, posted. And then I think we would have to look at sort of like what the budgeting would look like, and to make sure that the funds are actually in the budget for it. And if that's not the case, I know that one of the things that the budget committee is going to move towards this fall is they're going to have to start, you know, working on the 2026 budget. And so if we can't do it with this year's budget, for whatever reason, I think that as we're thinking about what we're going to need for 2026, then maybe that's something that we write into the 2026 budget. But depending on sort of how big you want to do it and how many people and what we would pay them, there may be funds in the budget for something like this. We just have to sit down
And really iron
with the
out
budget
details.
people and look at what we got.
Okay.
And I would just add, for special projects, there's always fundraising available to you guys. Outreach committee could consider fundraising. I know our previous outreach person had a really, successful project with our conversation series where she obtained outside funding for her project and she was able to spend the money a little more freely because it wasn't technically government funds, which our budget is. So there were the restrictions that we may have when you get it from outside source, you don't have that.
Understood. And to be clear, I'm very glad that you said that because I was actually going to ask a question about fundraising. I wasn't sure what the parameters were for us as a board or as a department. We can fundraise. We can ask people for money. And you know, that's what I'm good at.
Me too.
Yes, I'm real good at development, okay? We want your money. Okay, so if I may, I would like to I think we have a ton of really good ideas, and I would like to, as it says in new business, to identify the priority level of each of these things so that we can be a little more organized on what to expect out of our next outreach meeting. So, what things do we want to see happen most immediately? I would think, from my perspective, what I would like to be able to report on the next meeting would be my conversation with the monitoring team and Lee Anderson and figuring out what work has already been done in regard to the district meetings so that we can actively start participating in those. I think that it would be prudent of us to start working on that kind of standard presentation that we would like to have for each of us so that when we're all going to different community meetings or whatever they are, we all have that same standard presentation to start with. So I think that would be an immediate priority.
In the group,
The group.
listed sign up sheet.
Oh, yes. Working on that. Yes, that sign up sheet, kind of starting that lead list.
Yeah.
And then what I would also really like to see from the entire commission, and this is something I can create in an email, is what I suggested before about submitting maybe 3 to 5 names. And honestly, you can submit as many names as you would like, but I would like to see no less than 3 names from each commissioner of individuals in the community that we can reach out to personally and ask them to get more involved in these meetings. As it identifies in the charter, there is a certain amount of obligation that we are supposed to have to recruiting and expanding membership of these district police department meetings. And so I think an easy way to do that would be to collect those, 3 to 5 names or more that we can literally recruit to assist in bolstering attendance at these meetings, even ahead of our direct involvement or presentation.
Madam Chair, can we also add to that list about, I can meet with Mrs. Schutz-Woodson about the priorities, about leading these groups and, looking at the records and, what we can, put on those work groups and prioritize, sorry.
Sure, absolutely.
So you gonna be the contact.
I guess. I'm gonna work for it, I don't care.
Are there any other priorities that anyone else would like to add or see done in terms of outreach?
Yes, through the chair. I know when they were mentioning the community board, the outreach events that they have, she said it was something as simple as tabling. So when we come up with the work groups we want to do, you can even just have that documentation of what positive things, negative things are you seeing community-wise, police-wise, and then the questionnaire of do you want to be a part of a work group, and then your contact information. Since we know these are events that are coming up, or whatever that looks like, that's something that we can do in the immediate, time now.
So just to clarify, so that lead list that we're creating, you want to include that almost like small survey to ask those questions of community members and then say, would you like to get involved with this work? And here's how you provided your information.
Correct.
Okay.
And through the chair, I just wanted to just add, I think something we can do immediately is maybe, and I know Sam is probably already working on this, but maybe planning on how we bounce these outreach meetings to different locations throughout the city.
Okay, yeah. We do need to look at that.
Can we come up with a time?
Yeah, we need to come up with a permanent time. Okay. So in order to come up with that permanent time, can we send out another one of those, yes, one of those doodles? I like that. So if we can send out another doodle and then we can work on that this week, narrowing down what our outreach committee meeting day will be.
Great idea, because that way, we can include, Michelle, who manages the calendar, to make sure we're not conflicting with any other committee's time.
Perfect.
Because
I'm on a couple of them. So it'd be great to know when those meetings are gonna be.
Oh, sorry, last thing, I know we're gonna probably end soon. If, commissioners, if you have your computers, we wanna make sure that you not only have your personal calendars for the commission linked on your calendar, so when you pull up the calendar, you can see it. But we wanna make sure that you also have the full commission's calendar also selected, so I know that someone had to physically show me how to do it. So it'll show you your commitments, but it'll also show you everything that's going on with the commission so that you just kind of know what's going on.
And how soon can you offer that education? Because yesterday would be great.
Yes, whatever, if you got your computer.
Amen. These calendars are killing me. Okay, so with that, if there is no further discussion, no further questions or comments, I will move to adjourn.
You don't have to move to adjourn, just adjourn.
All right, well, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much.
And you took every minute of it. Thanks.
So talk to Jason.